Welcome back to the Joe Mac Podcast, special edition, hashtag Meet These Marines. I have three very special guest friends, prior service comrades. I have Jimmy Grignon, I have Estrada, and I also have Tommy Fowler. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Here.
You're here.
Yeah.
Where did we leave off last time?
I think we made it to
AP Hill.
AP Hill.
Okay. So yeah, and let's just get caught up right quick. Since I got y'all on the line, I just want to do a little brief recap. So Jimmy to Grig, yeah. Let's start where we covered. Okay, so how did how you guys ended up deciding to join the military, and then it's essentially the Marine Corps. Tommy, I'll start with you. You had, let me see how my recall is. Tommy, you basically had an ultimatum after high school. Hey, you got a year to figure it out. You decided to go in the Marines. You had other relatives in other branches. You were like, look, I'm gonna go ahead and blaze this trail. So that's the decision that you made. Jimmy, kind of similar story. I think you had two grandfathers in the Army and the Air Force, and you decided to go ahead and blaze another trail, sounds like. Fair to say?
Yep, fair enough.
And then Estrada, you had some life experience after high school in Calexico, California. You worked some jobs, and you said that feeling never went away of wanting to join the military, and you went ahead and blazed your own trail and decided to join the Marine Corps. And like you said, kind of opened up possibilities for other, other family members to join as well, essentially.
Correct.
Very good. Well, I never really got a chance to share my side. I'm going to do that really briefly. My father, William F. Macavoy, served 20 years in the United States Marines as a lieutenant colonel. He was a infantry officer. He actually went to flight school down in Pensacola. He had a contract for flight school, and he actually did not pass the eye exam at flight school down in Pensacola. He passed the one prior to get down there, but then he did not pass that one, so they didn't let him attend the school. And he was like, well, I mean, basically the way he told it to me, he was like, well, heck with it, might as well put me in the infantry. So that's what happened, and it's what he did for 20 years. His brother, my uncle as well, served 4 years right out of high school. And then my grandfather's brother was actually killed in action in Korea as a United States Marine as well. So definitely some family history going on. And, hey, look, I think I was curious more than anything else, and signed a dotted line and met up with these gentlemen after our basic training, after our combat training, and then after our specialty school. We all linked up together. And here we are today, 15 years later, catching up on a call. Thanks for being with me, guys. So last time we were talking about kind of working up towards our deployment, which was a 6-month-long kind of, we left on some Navy ships. We did some stuff. We came back. Do we want to get into the workup training, or do we just want to go right into the deployment phase that we went through?
I say shit. I mean, from the workups, really, like Estrada said, the most memorable part was AP Hill. I don't really remember the ins and outs of every workup that we did, man. So, I mean, shit, I would just say jump into the deployment.
Hey, McAvoy,
Yeah.
Was it that deployment that we got the new company NCO? That was like, you remember when me and you went to Fuddruckers in the 8, and the old guy walked in and he's like, hey, Joey, and we ate supper with him, or ate dinner?
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm really glad you brought that up. So the CO of the MEU, his name was he was Colonel Johnson at that time. He became a general. He was my dad's buddy. Yeah. They went to they were in the same training classes back in like the 80s or something. I believe they served together on Camp Lejeune for a period of time too, if I'm not mistaken. What I do remember is that growing up for a period of time in Virginia, I used to go to this guy's house. I used to clean it, cut his grass, swim in his pool, things like that. And lo and behold, he just happened to be the commander of the 24th MEU back in 2005. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that he actually had a part in you, me, and Brady actually becoming part of the MEU. So I'm glad you brought that up, dude.
Yeah, he did. So me and you took I believe it was a Sunday evening, and we went to the 24th, or we went to Fuddruckers to get some burger. And here comes this older guy, and he's like, "Hey, Joey, y'all talked for a minute. Hey, why don't you guys eat with us?" So we sat down with his family and ate dinner. And then, fast forward 2 or 3 weeks, and it's like, they're doing a ceremony for the changing over of the MEU and getting a new, MEU NCO. And it was him. It was that guy. And I was like, I'm looking over at you like, what the hell?
Yeah.
What the hell is
we done
a
ate dinner with the guy.
UNCO?
Yeah. Yeah, we done ate dinner with the guy.
Yeah. Wow, man, I'm so glad you brought that up. That's an excellent recall, man, because I kind of forgot about that interaction. That's glad you brought that up, man. Good stuff. Yeah, so he became, I guess so. I guess that's what happened. He became the CO of the 24th MEU at that time. He got us on board, and hey, that's where we all linked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, really quick, we kind of scratched the surface on our MOS, on our job description. Do we want to kind of get into that a little bit and kind of paint a picture for the viewer and the listener of what exactly an 0481 landing support specialist is and does, real quick?
Yes. Some of it were broke up into different parts of a red patcher, but a lot of, like for me, for example, I was a submarine door gunner.
And I was a in-flight missile repair tech.
There you go.
I got you.
Underwater sniper.
Yep.
Macavoy?
Yeah, I think I got nothing. I don't know. I mean,
I think you were a basket weaver, right?
That's what he was doing.
something like that.
Okay.
Bullet sponge, right?
Bullet sponge.
Yeah, so what the hell, man? So look, we all had the same job title, right? Which consisted of what? Helicopter. Who wants to explain it? I mean, Estrada, I'm gonna throw it to you because I know you have a good description of what our job duties and assignments were.
Well, it's an 041. We have actually 4 different jobs, or probably more than that, but I think it's 4 main jobs, which is we pretty much do the HSTs, which everybody here has done before. It's pretty much external lift.
HST, helicopter support team.
Yeah.
There you go.
Helicopter support team, external lifts. We do the beach operations, what we call pokes. Is that right? Beach operation group. Then we have the box, which the box is a beach operation group, and the POC, which is the port operation group. And then we run the ACTAX, the Arrival Departure Air Control Group. So those are the main jobs for 0481. But we do other things too. Besides running the beach, the port, the LCs, and the ACTAX, we sometimes roll a lot with Motor T as machine gunners, and which some of you did. We roll a lot with when we deploy, we really don't have a job. We end up with MPs doing certain jobs. And then when we become staff NCOs, most likely we're gonna end up in an S4 shop as a log chief or a operation chief with the G4, things like that. you know, as a embarkation mobility chief, embarkation chief, you know, things of that has to do with logistics.
Gotcha.
Nailed it.
Yeah, pretty much. Anybody have anything to add to that?
Nah, Gunny nailed it.
Yeah, pretty much. So thank you for that, Estrada. So just so I can kind of feed that back to you, make sure I got it correct as I heard it. A designation of 0481 is in the logistics field, and there's 4 main purposes of a red patch or a 0481 specialist. One is external lift, hooking up a load to a helicopter essentially, and to also kind of facilitate the movement of troops, gear, supplies from ship to shore and from shore to ship essentially. And then when all of those duties are not available at any point in time, we were tasked out to work with other MOSs and jobs, including motor T, motor transport, as machine gunners, and also with communications guys, engineers. So we had kind of a unique opportunity because we had opportunities to kind of cross-train with every other job in the Marine Corps, it seemed like, didn't it? Any of y'all got any stories that you can recollect cross-training or, you know, being with Motor T or being with any of those guys?
No, but
Well, I do. I mean, I do. Jimmy does, but that kind of fast forwards to mine and his second deployment after we did the split up.
Do you want to go off script and go there right now?
Jimmy?
Yeah. All right. Let's just roll down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's kind of a long story, and it's a little bit of a sad. There's kind of a sad part in there, but my man Jimmy, you know, pulled me through.
So I don't know how deep we want to go into it, but at this point, but yeah, so the reality is, right, when you go through MOS school, when you get into the fleet, you're running HSTs. HSTs are, in my opinion, the best part of what our MOS was.
Agreed.
We'd go out to an LZ, we'd set up, we'd hang out there all night, we'd be throwing chem lights at each other, having grappling matches until the helo showed up, and it was either a CH-46, a 53, or an Osprey. What's your favorite helicopter out there, Estrada? Which one did you enjoy the most?
the 53.
53. What about you, Fowler?
No
I'm a
question.
53, man.
53, Macavoy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I got to go with 53.
Yep.
I mean,
Listen, the Osprey will kill you.
The Osprey is a fucking flying coffin, but damn it, that thing is fun to do an HST with because there is no center, right? You get into
there's
the
no
center
dead
of
zone.
53 and it's calm. There is no center when it comes to an Osprey. That donkey dick or whatever it is, that electrifying hook is just flying all over the place. But yeah, so you train for that stateside, and then the reality is whenever you deploy, you get everybody from point A to point B, and then your job's kind of over. So that's when you link up with Motor T, or you link up with any of the additional MOSs, and you go out and you connect with those guys, and you run convoys, you run resupply missions, and kind of the LS red patch, what you've trained for, goes out the window until it's time to go back to home base, clean up everything, and ship it back to the United States. So between point A and point B, the beginning of the deployment and the end of deployment, there's a lot of stories in there, and that's where there's a lot of cross training and connections with other platoons and MOSs, but we'll get into that at some point. I don't know if you want to get into that right now.
thank you, Jimmy. Sounds like Fowler does. Sounds like Fowler had something that popped in his mind. If y'all want to go down that, if not, we can kind of keep it. It's up to y'all. I mean, look, me personally, I can just remember learning everything about setting up radios, setting up antennas to communicate with other, whoever needs to be communicated with. I can remember engineers, them guys were building all types of stuff, putting out concertina wire, just a lot of things come to my mind.
So me and Jim, just to reiterate on the whole, like joining Motor T. So me and Jimmy had went to, and Jimmy, correct me if my memory's wrong in any of this, but me and Jimmy and Brady was with us, but and a couple other guys, but we had deployed to Afghanistan. And while we're over there, they had asked for volunteers to go to a place called Dwyer, which I've talked to some younger Marines and Jimmy, I don't know if you know this, but apparently it's a big base now.
It's huge. Yeah. So now it's like a flight line, and it's massive.
When me and Jimmy went,
but it wasn't even Dwyer by when we went. Went over there.
It didn't exist when we went.
Camp Rhino, right? We were going to be the Rhino Raiders.
Yeah.
And they came to us and they're like, we want 4 people to go out to southern Afghanistan, right north of Pakistan, and start establishing a base out there. And my hand went up instantly. Fowler's hand went up instantly, and we had 2 other guys that were going to go with us. All right, I'll take it back to you. I'm not stealing your thunder.
No, you're good, because you're gonna be definitely voicing in this. But so in this, shortly after we volunteered, we were put on standby, and I had got a call from American Red Cross that they had to fly me home. So I flew home to Atlanta, and I watched my first baby girl was born. And then the next day she died. And then we buried her, and a week later they flew me back to Afghanistan. And so, needless to say, I was in a bit of a place in my own head and just kind of didn't care about anyone. So Jimmy, my man, had heard about this, and because he was already in Dwyer, so he heard about it, and against anybody else's knowledge, the CEO at Dwyer, anybody's knowledge, my man Jimmy hops a helicopter back to Kandahar, and he said, "Hey, Fowler, you got to pack your stuff. You going with me." Staff sergeants, nobody knew about it. I just assumed everybody was on board, right? So I packed I pack up my deployment stuff and jump on a helicopter that night, and the next thing you know, I can still remember when we got to Dwyer, it was stars were still in the sky, and I think I slept on top of a missile rack that night. And so anyhow, we the next morning, we got up and we did our thing. This is my buddy Brandon.
What up, Brandon?
What's happening, bro?
They all playing cornhole out there. But yeah, so and then we kind of did our stuff around the base for a while, and I think they were asking for volunteers to go on a convoy, and kind of everybody there had done it, and Jimmy was like, "Listen, everybody here is burnt out, and you're the new guy, so you're going on the convoy. Don't take your flat jacket stuff. Don't worry about packing MREs. You're there and you're back." So I did that. And if I'm not mistaken, Jimmy, it was like the first convoy that got hit the whole time was at that Dwyer. I mean, more happened after that, but like the convoy that had got hit since we showed up.
It was the first IED.
IED, yep. There you go. And so we ended up having to spend the night out there and, get the truck back. We had to call in a medevac helicopter, and I ended up getting a combat action ribbon out of it. But it was just crazy because, that wasn't part of our job, I guess. And, my man Jimmy was like, "Hey, it's good. Everybody's done them. It's you go through this village. We know the people there, and you just come back." And then just like that, out of nowhere, you get hit with an IED. This is my buddy's daughter, because they're here.
What's up, girlfriend?
You say hey to him? All right. I'm not FaceTiming. I'm on a podcast call. This is my cousin Craig's daughter because they're here.
What's up, Craig's daughter?
This is Bailey.
Hey, nice to meet you.
All right, y'all go. Y'all scat cats.
Come on. No, come on.
Oh, yeah, you got to. You got to. You got to.
No, come tickle me.
We got a crew.
Yeah, Tommy, thank you for sharing that. That's a pretty intense story.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, that really kind of paints the picture of what our role was to kind of fill those.
Yeah, it just kind of, I mean, it goes to show, like, once we are not like Jimmy said, once we're not doing, and Estrada, once we're not doing the HSTs and stuff, they just kind of throw us to the, like, hey, Motor T, here's a machine gunner for you.
Yeah, I think during the movement, during the actual movement from Jim just covered from point A to point B, we probably are the busiest ones. We have a lot of work, long hours, a lot of stuff to move. We move the personnel, the ammo, the vehicles, regardless if it's HST, a port, beach, or just a flatliner, we move everything. But whenever our job is done, moving all the personnel and gear, then we really don't have a job. All right.
Yeah.
So we have to do something, and that's when we come in and fill those spots.
Thank you for that. I got a question on Facebook Live from Chris Bennett. You guys remember him? He was part of the MU. He's asking, Chris Bennett.
Oh, yeah. I remember it.
He's asking, was that the convoy with Wilkes and First Sergeant Mercadante?
No, that convoy went out before we did. That convoy went out before I ever went home on that leave. This convoy was, like I said, this was after we'd been to Dwyer. I think we were in country for we'd already been in country for 3 or 4 months at this point, right, Jimmy?
Yeah. So we were pretty settled down at Dwyer by the time we got you down there. So if I remember right, that Wilkes and Mercadante, that was like April 15th, I want to say. That was one of the first convoys that kicked out of Kandahar. But this is 2 or 3 months later that we're talking about.
Thank you for that. Can you guys, since you guys were actually there, me and Estrada were not. We were not part of that unit. You guys were. Can you describe what happened?
What happened to what?
With First Sergeant Mercadante and Corporal Wilkes?
Jimmy, you want to take that one?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, me and Jimmy weren't on that convoy. I think Brady was on it, so he would probably be the best one to talk to.
Yeah.
All me and Jimmy can give you is what we had sitting back at the rear, which was limited information.
Gotcha.
They called in, said that the convoy had got hit. Next thing we know, they didn't make it.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I wasn't there. I don't know the details.
How long did you guys spend in Afghanistan?
I think we were there about 9 months.
Wow, that's a long time. And Jimmy, did you receive a combat action ribbon or no?
Yeah.
You did.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
From was it from that convoy or was it a different one?
So, I think really the majority of the MU that was over there, there was a blanket combat action that went over because,
yeah, but
the base constantly took mortar fire up in Kandahar. And
Jimmy, and again, I'm not trying to butt in on you, but you had didn't you had caught fire and y'all had shot back during one of those convoys, right? It took on small arms fire.
Yeah, we took in Dwyer whenever we were running resupply convoys, and we did that on a normal basis for 4 or 5 months straight, however long we were down there. We took RPGs and small arm fire pretty regularly. IEDs were not regular for us in that neck of the woods. But yeah, that's I did get a car, and I believe the majority of our MEU got a car out of that deployment.
And if I'm not mistaken, me and Jimmy got a what did we get? They gave was it a letter or something? Basically, they're saying that, you know, you did a good job because we did the work of a platoon with 2 people or something like that.
Yeah.
Letter of appreciation.
No, we got or at least I got a name out of that one.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
A name.
Yeah, that's good. Well, you know, I'm so glad that you guys made it back. I'm so glad we're able to catch up on this call now and really document your experiences, you know.
So talking about the HSTs, since we're down the rabbit hole where we're down in Dwyer, Fowler, why don't you share the story about the CH-46 that you were guiding in down there when things took an odd turn?
Yeah. So again, me and just to paint the picture, a flight line would be an overstatement. We had a plot of flattened sand, you know, that we called a helicopter pad and a flight line.
Yeah.
Me and Jimmy are the only 2 LS guys, so we are working all night, and we're borrowing heavy equipment from the Australians.
No, the
Britons or something?
the Brits were there with us, I believe.
Yeah, so we're borrowing heavy equipment from the Brits, and they're letting us drive it because they're like, yeah, take it or whatever. And we're unloading helicopters on our own. We're counting packs on our own. And then by the time we've literally, I mean, most of the days that we were down there, we're watching the sun come up while we're carrying carrying crates and stuff into the base. And then we go catch us about 3 hours of sleep before it's too hot to stay in that tent. And at this point, we're growing beards, and the higher ups on the base hate us because we look like a bunch of nasty Marines. But I mean, we didn't really have a choice. We didn't have time to do anything else. However, so I'm out there. Jimmy's like, listen, you got another 46 coming in. It's your turn. Go out there, guide him in. And I was like, all right, go out there on the flight line. I'm guiding in this 46. This thing gets about 30 yards, maybe 50 yards above the deck. And all of a sudden, it just like it just stops in midair and just goes straight to the ground, splits in half. There's helicopter parts flying everywhere. If I'm not mistaken, Jimmy jerks me by my flat jacket behind a Humvee. I mean, it literally looks like a movie, man. There's like flames and just helicopter parts flying everywhere. It just crashed, man, right there on the deck, 25, 30 yards away from us. So me and Jimmy, like, as soon as it crashes, we're obviously the first there. So we take off running for it. And then Jimmy, like, grabs me again, and he's like, man, that thing's got fuel on it because it was on fire. But luckily, I don't think anybody got hurt. As far as, I mean, the pilot broke his arm. The blade what had happened is the rear blade had stopped. The engine had stopped working, so the rear blade had drooped down and hit the other blades. And so those obviously sheared off. And then a blade come around that was already drooping, and it hit the side of the helicopter and snapped the pilot's arm. And if I'm not mistaken, besides bruises and cuts, that's the only major injury that happened, luckily. But so then for, I don't know, another month, we had to deal with a smoky 46 shell on our flight line.
Mm-hmm. We eventually buried it. They were trying to figure out how to HST it out of there, but there was no safe way to do it. So they brought some heavy equipment in, dug a hole, and buried that sumbitch. But what had happened is you got on a 46, you got 2 motors that are controlling the props, and the back prop sits about a foot or 2 higher than the front prop. And that back prop, because it's not a true flight line, we just had a bunch of gravel and sand, like Fowler was saying. As it was coming down, it sucked some gravel up, and it killed the motor in the back prop, which dropped down in the front prop. chopped up all the blades and just basically fell out of the sky.
It was pretty insane. Like I said, the best way to describe it was like a movie.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like an action scene from a movie. However, one thing I would like to touch on while we're talking about Dwyer, and Jimmy, you can put your vote in on this too. The shitters. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a 55-gallon drum cut in half, and every morning they would pour diesel fuel in it and burn the doo-doo.
Burn the doo-doo.
So here's the choice you had to make, right? You get up early and you go take a morning glory, but then you had to deal with smoky, hot, burnt doo-doo coming all up in your nose, or you wait later to the evening and then you have to deal with a mountain of fresh doo-doo.
And the flies tapping you.
And the flies tapping you on your sack. So, mine was the morning. I took the morning. What was your choice, Jimmy?
Man, I think I was kind of all over the place. I don't know if I had chosen the morning or the evening or what, but I do remember the shitters vividly.
Yeah, I had to go in the morning, man. I couldn't. I walked in one night and opened it up, and it was like coming out of the toilet lid.
Yeah,
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I just took a doo-doo right out there in the desert.
We built our own shower there. I mean, this place, we were homeless for 6 or 7 months. We were straight up homeless. So we were sleeping on RPG racks. We had built our own shower out of plywood and had a shower bag that we hooked up to it, and we'd leave that out in the sun all day, and it'd warm up the water. And then we'd get in there at the end of the night and bust, not together or anything, but bust out like a 30-second shower apiece, and that was like the most refreshing thing in the world. And then at the end of the night, we'd go out and we'd sit on a Humvee. Fowler would have a dip in. I was smoking cigarettes at that point in time, and we'd just hang out, shoot the shit, and look at the stars, man. It was we were in the middle of nowhere, but it was a great time in my life, I can tell you that.
I agree.
Wow. That's one heck of a story. So you guys were you were like the first guys there, kind of setting everything up.
We were with the first group. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was nothing like everything there was either a tent or a sandbag shelter when we were there. There was no permanent buildings. Hey, Eleanor.
So you guys were kind of working that flight line for about 7 months. Is that correct? You guys were there the majority of your Afghan deployment, sounds like?
I think Jimmy was there a little longer than I was just because of the previous thing, where I had went home. But yeah, we had spent a good time there. I can tell you, like, once they finally sent a couple more guys down, like they sent like 3 or 4 guys down to replace us too. And when they flew us back, thank you. When they flew us back, the staff sergeant met us on the flight line, and they wouldn't even let us go back to the base until they took us to get a haircut and a shave. Like, that's how non-Marine we looked at this point. I mean, I didn't have this, but like I had a beard, you know what I mean? And Jimmy had a little bit of a beard going himself. We looked rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think I threw away like a whole pack of socks. Like, they just weren't no good anymore. Because we were doing our laundry in a wet trash, we would put a plastic bag in a cardboard box and dump water in it and wash it out and then try to put it in some clean one, and that was laundry.
Wow.
Fire was fun. It was rough, man. It was legit like being homeless for 6 months.
Wow. Did y'all have any idea that that's how it was going to be before the deployment?
I mean, for me personally, I didn't have expectations of living like a homeless person, but I knew that I knew that we were going into a combat zone. I guess I would say that in my mind, I thought it would probably be more like a movie, like you go and fight during the day and then you come back at night and rest and stuff. But
yeah,
it was much different than that. It was better than a movie, I guess.
Yeah.
Or worse. It depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, Fowler, I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, you know, you brought up the fact that you were kind of put in a very difficult situation. You got a message from the Red Cross saying, hey, come on back to the States. You got to witness the birth of your daughter. And then unfortunately, you also, you know, she passed during that next day. And then you had to go back to Afghanistan. I mean, how did you deal with that? How did you find the strength to get through that?
I didn't. That man right over there gave me the strength to deal with it. And that's part of being a Marine. That's what I'm saying. Like he literally come and pulled me, grabbed my hand and pulled me up. And he, if I'm not mistaken, Jimmy, I actually got in trouble for it. I don't know if he got like paperwork on it, but he was reprimanded. He had to stand with his heels clocked together and listen to somebody chew him out for what he did. Jimmy, am I wrong in saying that? I'll let you take it.
No, I mean, yeah, that's right. So Fowler's my boy, right? I mean, he's one of my best friends, and you guys don't know this, but we have each other's initials tattooed on our asses. So I got TBF on my ass. He's got JTG on his ass. I mean, that's my boy right there. So I knew what he was going through, and sitting at a base in Afghanistan was not healthy for him mentally. So that's why I hopped back there and said, come on, let's go have some fun. So no, I caught some shit for it, but it wasn't like I got rank ripped off my collar or anything like that. It was just a little bit of a wrist slap about taking somebody off a base and bringing them, you know, a couple 100 miles south in the middle of a war zone, you know. So is what it is. But hey, that's what we're here for. We're brothers, right? And that's what we do.
Always. Does
Wow.
that answer your question?
Oh, absolutely, dude. I mean, thank you guys so much for sharing that. I mean, I didn't know to that depth and to that extent of those details. Estrada, did you know all that?
No, I didn't.
Wow, man. That's very powerful. And I mean, the fact that you guys are, you know, sharing that is so big, man. It's really, really admirable. I'm sure, Estrada, you agree with that.
I do. You know, I know some of the stories from Brady and Chavez, but this is the first time I hear this story. It's awesome. Good story.
Yeah, see, Brady and Chavez, like, even when we was over there, they was off doing their own thing. Me and Jimmy didn't see hardly anybody from our platoon for months, man. It was just me and him.
Wow. Wow. Now, so this was kind of early 2008, early to mid 2008. Is that? Am I correct in that? That's
2007.
This was 2007.
Okay.
2007.
Okay. From when to when? Late 2007 till when?
This was late 2006 to mid to late 2007.
Yeah. Because I got out in 08, and my EAS date was coming up right whenever we was coming home from deployment.
Or maybe early 07 to late 07. Yeah.
I'm thinking it might have been 08, early to mid 08. Because I got Bennett watching.
Oh, that's right, because I got out in September of 08. So we left at late 07 into 08.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Got it. Thank you for that. Thank you, guys. Wow. So, and then during this time frame, me and Estrada, we separated from the 24th MU. We went to LS company.
I'll be out there in a minute.
Did y'all have? Well, I mean, while we're there in Afghanistan, I mean, was there any other stories that really stuck out to you, or anything else that y'all wanted to add to that?
I remember one time getting reprimanded on. So like Jimmy said, we got mortared pretty regularly. I would say at least once to twice a week they would shoot mortars into the base. And every time the rule was every time they shot mortars, they would sound the siren, and you grab your flat jacket and your rifle, and you head to a bunker. If I'm not mistaken, it was when me and Jimmy had gotten back, and so we're pretty tuckered out. to say the least. I mean, we've been pulling crazy shift hours and everything, and we had laid down in the rack, and they shot a mortar over, and they sounded the siren, and everybody in our tent got up and grabbed all their gear, and they took off. And I had just, it was dumb, but like again, I mean, I was exhausted, but I had just reached over, I grabbed my flat jacket and like pulled it over the top of me like a blanket. And I was just like in my head, I was like, if they hit it, they hit it. I'm sleeping, you know? So I got in trouble for not going out of the tent because they, you know, they do roll call when they get in there. But like you become so exhausted that you're just kind of like even like a death experience, you're just kind of like, I'll take my chances, you know?
Wow. Wow, dude.
You remember that, Jimmy?
Yep,
I don't think you moved either.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not the smartest thing. And,
No.
you know, I know whenever we landed in Afghanistan, I still remember the first time a mortar came in, and I was taking roll for my squad, and like my hands were shaking, right? Because that's the first time you experience that. But by the end of it, you get a little salt on you, and you feel like Fowler said, if it's your time, it's your time. So.
Wow. It's pretty intense.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Jimmy was in the Porta-John one time, and he ended up going to the bunker with a flat jacket and his boxers and flip-flops.
Damn, I wish we had some footage of that or pictures of that. Man, it'd be,
Well, it was funny.
Sure.
He still looked like a war dog.
Wow. Wow. So how soon after you guys, well, let me ask you this. I mean, after all that was said and done, I mean, how was your return to the States? I mean, how was that whole process coming back to Lejeune, coming back to the States? I mean, can you take us there?
So again, my EAS date was coming up. EAS means getting out. Like my contract was coming to an end.
Yeah.
So they sent me back. Was it 2 weeks early, Jimmy?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
They sent me back 2 weeks early so I could get all my paperwork done. Because at this point, in hindsight 2020, I wished I'd have stayed in. But again, you know, I just lost my daughter. I'd been gone for 7 months. My wife had been grieving on her own. She didn't want me to stay at the time, and so I just let my contract in and I got out. Again, hindsight 2020, I wish I could be like Gunny Chavez and Gunny Estrada, but I'm doing all right. Anyhow, I went back 2 weeks early, and I didn't really have anybody. Like I had to go 2 weeks early and left Jimmy and everybody there, and I EAS'd and was gone by the time they all got back, pretty much.
Gotcha. When you said that you wish you stayed in, what makes you say that?
Oh man, like my man Chavez is pretty much retired, you know, like he's what, 30, how old is Chavez, Estrada?
He's like 35.
Yeah, 35. I'm 34, still working every day. Chavez, 35 years old and retired. Gunny, how old are you? How old are you, Estrada?
I'm 40.
40, but you're retired. I mean, you're in reserves, right?
Yeah, I'm still serving. You know, I'm a civil servant still, and so I'm putting time into the military retirement and putting time into my federal retirement. So
yeah. But
well, aside from the retirement, is there any other reason that you wish you would have stayed in aside from that?
I wouldn't say besides the retirement. I wished I'd have stayed in for the retirement and of course the experience. So it's kind of a catch-22. If I would have stayed in, I wouldn't have my son and my daughter and be the man that I am right now. I would have, I don't know. I'd still be a war dog, you know. But if I would have stayed in, I'd be close to retirement at 34 years old, and then I could get out and just kind of, I guess, take it easy, you know.
Yeah. Gotcha.
But I mean, I don't regret anything if that's what you're asking. I still, like I said, I mean, we're sitting here having this conversation, and I hadn't seen Estrada in probably 13 to 15 years, and like seeing his face just sparks that love in my heart, man. You know, like I love that man.
Hey, I can tell you something, Feller. You look better, man.
Yeah, I do look good.
You're aging like a good red wine.
Yeah, hey, a beard hides a lot, brother.
Yeah, man, you guys look good. You sound good. I mean, you know, it's such a privilege to be on the line with you guys. I mean, Tommy,
When you gonna grow a beard, man?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. You got any tips for me?
Yeah, just let it grow.
Okay.
I don't think he can grow hair in his face.
Oh man. Oh, that's a bad problem to have.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Anything else from Afghanistan, guys? Off the top? We'll probably say that for another call. I'm sure Brady's going to have a ton to add. I'm sure that Child's going to have a ton to add to that. I mean, that's just incredible.
We'll have to do it on another call. I got some family members showing up, so I'm fixing to have to bounce.
Hey, man, thank you so much for your time, buddy. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. As always, it's a pleasure talking to you.
We'll set something else.
I'll try to take the computer. I may be able to do one of these next weekend, but I'm going to be at the beach on vacation. So
you can have it set up. You can have it set up to do it from your cell phone, but we'll figure out what works with everybody. I mean, look, we could do this every week forever. You know what I mean? Like, we can add people. We can, look, there's no rules here, man.
Yeah.
There's no script here. So
no, for sure. I mean, I like where this is going. You know what I mean? I hate that you didn't get to say a whole lot on this one. I felt like me and Jimmy kind of stole the show on this one.
No, but it was really good.
Yeah.
Enjoy that story a lot.
Yeah, good, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for sharing. So, Jimmy, you want to stay on the line? Estrada, you want to stay on?
I don't mind staying for a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm good, brother. I got no plans tonight. My mother-in-law is here, so I'm just hanging out in the basement drinking beer.
I should have came to your house and drank beer, Jimmy.
Yeah, next time, brother.
Hey, yeah, on that note, I mean, look, me and Estrada, we're on the line. Look, we'll figure out a way for us to actually link up in person. I mean, that's going to be epic too. We'll figure something out, obviously.
Hey, listen, like I said, me and Brady and Jimmy and Chavez has already done a trip, so it's going to be nothing if you guys want to. Next trip we decide to go on, you guys jump in there with us.
Right. Okay.
Now, whatever we decide on, like last time, me, Jimmy, and Brady took the flight. So this time it may be the California boys having to take the flight our way.
Hey, I ain't opposed to that. I'm an East Coast dude, so
I mean, you're from Virginia. It's debatable.
How is that debatable?
I'm just saying, like you Virginia boys are weird, man. Y'all got West Virginia.
Yeah. When's the last time you looked at a map, Fowler?
There was a lot. What was it? Hammond was from Virginia, and you two are like completely different.
Hamilton.
There you go.
Yeah. It's a very diverse. I mean, East Coast
Hamilton was super country, and you're kind of like a city boy.
Hey, diverse.
With good hair.
Hey, with the good hair, right? Hey, Fowler, man. Fowler, and appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much. Jimmy, I mean, that was really phenomenal, man. I mean, bro, it takes a different type of cat to really put that out there, man. So, much respect to you.
All right, boys, I love y'all. I'm out.
Both of you, man.
All right, brother. Have a good night. We'll talk to you later.
All right.
Peace.
Whew. Wow. So didn't expect to go there, but hey, I guess that's what happens when you go off the script. Wow, man. Wow. I'm so glad that I'm aware of what y'all went through, because me and Estrada were not there. We were LS company doing other stuff. And do you remember them coming back? What do you remember from that, Estrada?
Don't remember a lot, man. I think they came back, and some of them were getting ready to pretty much EAS. And we were an Alice company, but we were doing a lot of those nonstop WTIs, desert talents in those days, and those are Aberdeen trips.
Yep. That's right. That's right.
And we had a bunch of Marines in the company, but there was a lot of problems going on, and I don't want to get into that. But we were one of the few NCOs that were allowed to go on those trips. So we will come back from one, and we will go straight into the other one.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that, but we will come from WTI, and 2 weeks later we will be in Maryland doing the experimental lifts with the that Master Sergeant. What was his name? Do you remember him? I can't recall his name, but it was this Master Sergeant to work with the Marine One, and we had to come out with the linkages and lift all those experimental materials and gear for the Marine Corps. And then we will come back and then get ready to do desert talent, and then go do desert talent, come back and do something else.
Man.
But we were just, from one training operation to another constantly for almost a year.
That's amazing, bro. I mean, just you saying that, Jimmy, just to kind of fill you in at this point, I mean, what Estrada's talking about essentially, and then for the viewer and the listener that's not really kind of up to speed, is that we were part of a non-deployable, me and Estrada were part of a non-deployable unit during the time where everybody else on this call was in Afghanistan. During this non-deployable unit, me and Estrada were tasked with being leaders of groups of guys that had the opportunities to go to Maryland, to go to Yuma, Arizona, to go to these air bases and basically do a lot of testing a lot of gear and equipment. And man, I mean, just you saying that, man, really on this call is really painting the drastic difference between what you guys were going through while we were kind of doing our thing back at the States, man. And
we were testing a lot of that equipment that was getting ready to deploy. That the Marine Corps, was coming out with new armor, vehicles, with the artillery, and we were testing a lot of the stuff. I don't know if you remember that. A lot of those trips was because we had to make sure that that new equipment was able to be externally lift. And we will come out with the linkages, and then they will put them into the books pretty much. And then we will teach all the younger Marines, the younger LS Marines, how to do those linkages, how to prepare those vehicles and that equipment to be externally lift. So it was a little bit different paths within the Marine Corps, but it was pretty exciting too. Just it was a learning experience.
Wow.
What's the craziest thing you've ever lifted, Estrada?
Man, I don't think it was crazy. It's just we lifted this. I don't know. I think Mac was there too when we lifted that big I-beam. It was a training exercise, and the pilot got super excited, started playing around with the helo, and then those donkey dicks are they're electronic. So this guy, as soon as that load went too much to the side, sorry, somebody's coming in. It just released the load, and we dropped that load from almost pretty close to Yuma, Arizona. So we were outside the city, but we were close to the city. So there was a big investigation, and we had to go back and recover the I-beam. Remember a lieutenant colonel showing up to our barracks room, asking a bunch of questions. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to get into the details, but they try to blame it on they try to blame it on the LS Marines, and we did a wrong, we used the wrong slang or the wrong linkage. So there was a lot of questions, But the good thing is that we knew how to do our job. We always kept record of everything, the slings, the safety inspections. So when everything was put together, we came out clear, you know. And but it wasn't crazy, you know, when it comes to the actual material that we lift, but it was very, you know, the things that happened afterwards, that was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Do you remember the training exercise when the helicopter lifted that I-beam and dropped it on the kid's foot? Were you there for that or no? This was an LS company, I want to say. Who was
No, I remember it. I
Yeah.
remember what happened, but I wasn't there.
You weren't there. Yeah, I wasn't there either, I don't think. Yeah. But I forget the kid's name. Yeah, I mean, Jimmy, just to piggyback off of that, this I think it was a 53 external lifted this helo, and I mean he external lifted a beam, and you know how they kind of hovers up and down sometimes. Well, it just picked it up and just set it on one of the guy's foot, crushed all the bones in his foot. Forgot the Marine's name. He was in a cast for a long time, I think. I forget the guy's name, but that's another incident that comes to mind. Another incident that comes to mind is, I believe this was during WTI in Arizona, in the desert of Yuma. It was an external lift with a water bowl, I want to say, and I don't know what the heck happened, man. It just, we were there, and then the bull was there, and then it was gone. I mean, this thing just, I don't know what the pilot did, but he just yanked this thing, and I want to say it through is it? Estrada, that's not what you're talking about, is it?
No.
Same thing? No.
No.
You know what I'm talking about? Or is that my imagination?
I don't. I just don't remember.
Okay. But yeah, man. Good
I know
stuff.
somebody dropped. I think it was one of us. Maybe Castilla. They drop a Humvee to the New River.
Yeah.
I can't remember the whole story, but I know it was one of us.
Real quick, let's do a real quick. Who was not in Afghanistan? Who went to LS Company? It was you, me, Winstead, Castile. Who else?
And
Mir Montez.
Yep.
You guys, the majority of the group that deployed first went to LS Company. The only guys that really stayed on was myself, Chavez, Fowler, and Brady, Nisakos, and Weaver. And
Wow.
That's it.
Wow. Jeez. And then everybody else either chopped to LS or they got out, pretty much.
Yeah.
Greg, when did you decide that your 4 years was going to be that that's it, I'm out of here?
Going into the Marines, I thought it was going to be a lifelong thing. But towards the end of it, I had matured. I feel like, some people might argue that, but I feel like I had matured a lot in those 4 years, and I had some other stuff that I wanted to do with my life. And so coming into the Marines, I wanted nothing to do with schooling. Towards the end of the Marines, I was like, maybe I could go back to school and do something else. And so, just curiosity got the best of me, and that's why I ended up getting out and seeing what else was out there on the other side.
What was on the other side?
When I got out, so I moved back to Nashville, Tennessee. I needed quick money, so I went and worked at a prison for about 6 months. And talk about a crazy job. That might have been crazier than anything I've seen in the Marines. I mean, the shit that you see inside of a prison, you cannot unsee, right? It's wild. So I did that for about 6 months to get a paycheck. I had enrolled back into school. I went to MTSU, which is Middle Tennessee State University. And whenever I went back to school, then the GI Bill kicked in. they started paying for my house. They paid for my books. They paid for my schooling. And then I got a part-time job afterwards at a elementary school teaching sports to like kindergartners through 5th grade. So I did that, got my degree in business with a major in marketing, and then went and worked for a big manufacturer that was based out of Nashville, Tennessee for about 8 years. Worked out of the corporate office for about 5 years, and then moved to Florida and ran the state of Florida for them for about 3 years. And then about 6 months ago, switched over to a different company. So it's been good, man. You know, I'm certainly glad I did the Marines. I think it should be mandatory for every guy to get into the branch, some branch of the military. It made me grow up really quickly, but it also afforded me the ability to meet guys like you. I was able to go to college for free. You know, we spent years paying off my wife's student debt, and that's something I was able to do for free and take advantage of additional grants that are out there. So yeah, I mean, life's been good, man. I can't complain.
Wow. Thanks, Greg. Jeez, man, that's a very colorful story. More power to you. I'm so happy that you're successful. And yeah, it sounds like Georgia's the place to be, man. It sounds like you guys really like it there.
Yeah, it's a good spot, brother.
Very good. I mean, there's another thing I didn't know is you did 6 months. You worked at a prison for 6 months. Do we want to touch on that, or is that kind of, should we say that for another call?
Totally up to you, bro. Your show.
Estrada, what do you think?
I don't know. We can touch it up. You can talk about it. It sounds pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if you could just give us how did you make that decision? How did you find that opportunity? What made you decide to go for it?
Look for ex-military guys, right? So I got out of the Marines. We moved back to Nashville, Tennessee. There's 2 big prisons in Nashville. One is a privately owned medium security prison called CCA. They've got CCAs all over the country. And the other one is a maximum security called Riverbend. And I went and I found, I don't know, on monster.com or whatever job site I was on at that point in time, put my application in, got called into both, did interviews, and got job offers from both. The medium security prison was offering more money. So I was like, well, shit, I'm going to go do that. That sounds like it's going to be a lot easier. Biggest mistake I ever made in my life. Maximum security, them boys stay locked up 24/7 pretty much. You ain't got to deal with them. Medium security, you roll up in a pod. It's you and one other correctional officer. All you've got is a walkie-talkie on your hip. And there's like 150 of these cats that come out and roam freely throughout the pod during certain hours of the day. So it is just mass chaos. And so immediately, being an ex-Marine, I get put on to one of the teams there that does extractions. And, you know, if somebody's acting disorderly, this team, QRF, if you want to call it that, gets called in. And so like the second week that I'm there, they call us up and they're like, hey, we've got a guy that's in solitary that is not coming out of his cell. We got to go extract him. So we go down to solitary, and they're big, you know, probably 7 foot by 4 foot metal doors, and they've got a 6-inch window that you can see through. Well, this guy had covered up the window with cardboard. Well, how do you stick cardboard to a window? With your own fecal matter. So that's what he had used. We pop the door. We look inside there. He's butt naked, had covered himself in his own shit. There's shit smeared all over the walls. We slam the door back shut, and we're like, all right, we got to think about this. So we end up going back to the locker room. We suit up, got a guy in the front with a shield, and then the rest of us have gas masks on. We go back there, pop the door. Everybody has an assignment as you roll up into a cell. You know, one guy's got the shield. The next guy behind him has the left arm. Another guy's got the left leg. Another guy's got the right leg. Another guy has the right arm. So everybody's, you know, has an assignment, get in there and take control. And we did it and yanked this dude up out of his cell. But I mean, it's just stuff like that. You see stuff like that on a daily basis. It's a whole nother world when you're inside of a prison, right? All they know is what's in those four walls. And I'm really glad I did it, but the guys that do that for a career for 20, 30 years, hey, more respect to them. I could never do it.
That sounds pretty intense, brother.
Yeah, it was fun.
Wow. So that you did that for about 6 months. You kind of figured out really quick, hey, this might not be a career path for me.
And it was never intended to. It was just something, you know, I was waiting for a semester to start at school, and I needed quick money. So,
so how old are you at this time? 23, 24?
yeah, about.
So you're 24. You got Marine combat experience. You go in. I mean, let's just touch on the duties and responsibilities real quick of working at this prison. You decided to take the medium over the maximum security. You said that was a mistake. And the reason being is because you got 100+ prisoners kind of roaming freely. It's just you and one other guy. You're armed with nothing but a walkie-talkie.
Mm-hmm.
And they also put you on a kind of a specialized team that deals with problematic inmates, and you were assigned with extracting these inmates by force, essentially.
Yep, that's right, man.
Were the guys that you're working with ex-military?
Yeah, the majority of them were. That's you know, Fowler worked in a jail. I don't know if it was considered a prison, but he worked in a jail. He was in the jail and I was in the prison at the same time. It's an easy transition if you're looking for a stepping stone from the military life to the civilian life. Typically, they run a pretty tight ship inside of a prison, and there's a lot of stuff that you learn in the military that comes in useful whenever you're a correctional officer.
That's a pretty graphic story, and that you share with us. Thank you for sharing that. But you know, through it all, again, you said that you're thankful for your experience in the Marine Corps, and you were glad that you did the prison duty. Why is that?
Why am I glad I did the prison duty?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, I mean, yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, in that regard, like why, you know, after an experience like that, I mean, what were your main take? I mean, why were you happy that you did that?
Well, I mean, just for the exposure for 9 out of 10 people, probably 9.99 out of 10 people don't get to see what goes on behind a prison wall, right? So that's always something that's interested me. And at that point in time, I was thankful for a paycheck. I was getting out of the Marine Corps. I was married. I was coming back to a city that I hadn't been in years. And basically, I just needed money in my pocket. So that's the reality is that's what I was after. But looking back on it, yeah, it was a wild and a fun job, and got a lot of good stories from it. But at that point in time, it sucked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Sounds like one extreme to another. I mean, that's pretty incredible story, dude. Estrada, you got anything for Jimmy on that?
No, just sounds like an awesome job. You know, it's like an awesome experience.
Yeah, that's pretty. I'm not sure what to say at this point. I wouldn't know where it. I wouldn't know where it at either. And I guess Tommy did work at. You know how long he worked? I wonder how long he worked at a prison. I can't wait to get that.
They were like 6 months to a year. It wasn't too long.
So that was my thing. Yeah. How do you do that? How do you transition from that environment to school? Let's talk about that.
You know, school, I wasn't your typical student. I was a commuter student, right? So I was already married. I didn't get involved in like the fraternities or any of the extracurricular stuff that was out there or offered. I basically drove in, knocked out my classes, and then drove back and then went to work in order to make a paycheck. So, you know, I got my 4-year degree in like 2.5 years because I did summer classes. I was doing 18+ hours every single semester. You know, school was all business for me. It wasn't a whole lot of fun or socializing.
Gotcha. Wow, man. That's that's a lot of accomplishments, man. I mean, at that age, I mean, not many people can say that they did military service. They worked in a prison, doing that type of jobs, and then being successful at school. I mean, that really sets you apart from most people.
Yeah, brother.
What y'all want to do? Y'all want to wrap this thing up?
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
Tim, you want to add anything to that? I mean, thank you for sharing. I mean, you shared a lot with us, man. I mean, that's some awesome stuff, dude. I mean, that's some. I'm kind of speechless. I don't know what to say at this point. I'm just like,
That was a good story, man. Like,
yeah, man. That's like, yeah.
go grab somebody from a room full of shit.
Oh, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude.
So let's so I mean, you had to do that on a daily basis. I mean, not exactly.
That's one of the extreme stories right there, right?
Yeah. But you had to extract you had to deal with problematic inmates on a daily basis.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. There were fights. I mean, you would catch dudes. You'd see dudes, pulling a Macavoy, beating off in their bed. Yeah, you'd catch guys doing all sorts of shit that you just don't want to see. It's a wild place in there, brother.
You really had to take it there, didn't you?
Yep.
Hey,
We're recording.
I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad.
We're not live, is that right?
Oh, we're live.
Oh, really?
Oh, we're live. Oh, baby, I ain't tripping, baby. You know, I mean, I appreciate you, acknowledging me. So, being in that type of environment, I mean, what were your main takeaways? I mean, prior to going into that prison environment, what were your thoughts going in, and then how different was that in all actuality?
The only expectations you have walking in are what you see in movies and on TV, right? It's totally different. It blows your mind. You go in there, and the reality is that the inmates run the prison. The COs do not run the prison. The inmates run the prison. You go up in a pod. You've got 150 inmates. You've got a few guys that you think you can trust, and if you need to influence the inmates, you go to those particular heads of whatever set or of that pod, and you talk to them as saying, hey, I've got a problem with this guy and you need to fix it amongst yourselves, otherwise we're going to have to step in, or we're going to yank them out, or whatever the case may be. But the majority of the time is that the inmates, they run that pod themselves. They set up a schedule with guys that clean it. They set up a schedule with commissary. As far as who goes out to the rec, we're basically just facilitating it. And if things get out of hand, then that's where we step in. But at the end of the day, it's just a whole nother world in there.
How many COs did you see come and go during that 6-month time frame?
There's a high amount of turnover in that field for sure.
What was the training process like for you?
We caught OC just like we did in the Marines. You get gassed just like you did in the Marines. You go through an interview process. There's not really a physical test or anything like that, but anything that any sort of pain or anything that you're going to inflict on an inmate has to be done to the correctional officer themselves, so they know what they're doing to that inmate.
Gotcha. Any other, for the guys that are, for somebody that's thinking about getting into corrections, what advice would, for a new guy coming in, what advice would you have for them, or what type of insight would you provide for somebody looking to do something like that?
Look for other jobs, look for other careers. I can't imagine doing that for more than a year, man.
Who were the guys yeah, so you met these guys that have been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years and stuff. I mean, what were these guys like?
What you would think they're like, kind of just after the year mark, a lot of these COs just kind of give up. You know, they just let the pods, let the inmates run themselves. When you go in there, you still got that military mindset. You know, you're knife handing everybody. You're you're the big dick on the block. But once you get past that year, you get a little salt on you. You're basically just kind of just whatever. You're just collecting a paycheck and just letting the pod run itself.